Okay, we are back with part 2 of Duality of Wrestling's review of AEW Dynamite from August 12th, 2026. Let's jump back in. Following the victory by Jay White, we get the brand new World Trios Champions, the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly of Bandito, Brody King, and Hangman Adam Page coming out to the ring. They are interviewed by Tony Schiavone. They don't get very far into it. Hangman's about to speak a little Spanish for us, and then we get the return of Swerve Strickland. That's right, Swerve's house is back on the market, and he is back with Nana by his side. We got him come out, and he basically came out to run down all 3 members of the new Trios champions, talking about his match with Bandito, basically saying he terrorized a bunch of people, but came out with the win. Talked about his win over Brody King. I believe that was back at Revolution, if memory serves, where they did the match for the most dangerous man in AEW or whatever, that Swerve also was victorious in, and then talked about his history with Hangman Adam Page. And Swerve wanted to know what the long-term legacy of Hangman is now that Hangman can no longer challenge for the AEW World Championship. Hangman retorts basically saying that he hasn't taken his eye off of Swerve at all, even if Swerve's taken his eye off of him, and that Swerve has done a lot of awful things and has absolutely nothing to show for it, which also, fair critique. Very, very good writing. Before we get too further down the line into beefing between the two, the Demand comes out and interrupts. Ricochet goes through the history of himself and Swerve, the toilet paper being thrown into the ring, the GOA being dropped by Nana and being recruited up by Ricochet to form the Demand in the first place, the bald chance, all of that, basically his long-standing beef with Swerve. Ricochet had really good, verbiage in his promo. The prose of it was very good, but what I just keep noticing from Ricochet, and I've had a difficult time figuring out what keeps him from being a good promo, and I almost think now he lacks passion in the words he says. He doesn't come off heated. He doesn't always come off like he believes what he says. He doesn't totally sound like he's reading from a script, so I don't want to go that far with it. But I do think that Ricochet could do with a bit more acting chops and just, being able to go through his lines with a bit more fire. He needs to believe in himself a little bit more. And I hate to say that from a guy who is as skilled as Ricochet is in the ring. He has no reason not to believe in himself, but obviously promos are the weakest part of Ricochet's game. So I think he needs to be able to tap into a bit more of an emotional well and not just come off as the cocky dickhead heel. There needs to be some fire inside him that he can bring to the surface. And I think that would really go a long way to helping him from going to just not being the aha guy. And that actually messed up my voice doing that. So kudos to Ricochet for not cracking his voice like mine just did. What up, Greg Brady? But yeah, I think if Ricochet can harness that little inner emotional energy a bit more, I think it'll really up his promo game. That said, he has improved a good bit since he first came and was trying to be out of this world babyface Ricochet, which did not land. So it looks like we're setting up a rematch in the coming weeks between the Demand and the Good, Bad, and the Ugly. I don't know if we're doing it at Dynamite in the next week or two. I don't know if we're, gonna save it for All In. I'm not totally sure, and I still don't know exactly where Swerve factors into this. I would imagine Swerve probably ends up in the Gauntlet match himself, and I think it's telling that he came out during this particular promo. I'm not actually sure why we brought Swerve back this early rather than saving him for All In. I feel like that might have gotten a better reaction than bringing him out in a trios segment, but I guess we'll see. Maybe there's an alignment for Swerve that I haven't seen yet or haven't thought of yet. We get a Willow pre-tape with Renee, where Renee is about to interview her. Mercedes jumps her with the Owen belt, saying, "Oh, you want to embarrass me? You want to, make my life miserable? This is what happens." Nothing too interesting here. Pretty paint by numbers. And honestly, I expected better of these two, given the way their promo feud started off here versus where we are at present. We then get a championship match. We get Kevin Knight defending his TNT championship against definitely not Chris Jericho. Jericho with a nice vintage Jericho Hurricane Rana from the top early in this match. This was very good in ring, and I don't want to say it was all Kevin Knight that carried it. Jericho looked pretty good here too. Jericho followed that up with a fist from the outside and then took the time to go over to his old tag team championship partner, Paul White, who was at commentary desk, and hang out there, and I think even sit on White's lap a little bit. So nice to have a little brief Jericho reunion. White was actually pretty good on commentary as well throughout the show, so I'm glad that he's being able to develop in that area as well. Kevin Knight soon after dodges the Jericho attack on the outside and hits him with a really nice looking double jump punch that saw him launch himself off the announce desk onto Jericho. Knight also hit a massive aerial lion salt, getting Jericho back in the ring. Tons of hops on that lion salt. Jericho did get the knees up, however. Knight was able to hit a leaping clothesline over the ropes to the ramp on Jericho to the outside. Jet went for a plancha, but Jericho hit him with an almost sort of chest gut buster style knee as Knight was crashing to the floor. Jericho locked Knight into the walls of Jericho, but in one of the worst blocking spatial botches you'll ever see. Don Callis goes to the ring, tries to get in the ring, only for Jericho to not break the walls, but sort of move himself closer so that Callis wouldn't be seen by Aubrey Edwards getting into the ring. Then Callis goes back up onto the apron to execute the spot again, hits Jericho with the screwdriver. That allows us to obviously have the hold broken, letting Knight hit the Van Terminator, but for a really near fall that I definitely bought. Jet goes for the UFO after that. Jericho hits a code breaker out of mid-air on the UFO attempt. Looked great. Jericho goes for the Judas effect. Knight ducks, hits a nut shot while Aubrey Edwards was distracted, hits the crash landing, spinning rock bottom thing he's doing now, and that gets him the win over Jericho. Really, really good match, but marred by that awful botch between Jericho, Callis, and Knight. I don't know who's more at fault. I want to say it's Jericho because he wasn't placed properly to allow Callis to easily get the screwdriver shot in without tipping Aubrey Edwards off to it, or getting all the way in the ring to do it, which also looked awkward. It looked bad, guys. Go back and watch it if you haven't seen it yet. It's one of the worst spatial blocking style botches you'll ever see. But they're all from guys who are very good at their jobs. I don't want to spend a lot of time harping on it, but man, it was freaking ugly. We get a Death Riders promo backstage. The only two ones who really get much speaking time in are Claudio and Mox, as they're the ones in the Continental Cup, which we're now calling the Continental Challenge Cup. So a little bit of a mid-tourney rebrand-ish there. Man, seeing Claudio and Mox speak back to back, juxtaposing those guys together, it just shows how far Jon Moxley is ahead of the promo game of Claudio Castagnoli. And Moxley is obviously an otherworldly great promo. He always has been. That's always been probably the strongest part of Moxley's game is his promo ability, and it's always been the weakest part of Claudio's game. But good Lord, they're doing two different things. They're not even playing the same sport. So a little bit tough to watch, and I would love, to see Claudio improve in that and to boost his stock. But I think at this point, Claudio is who he is. I don't think he's going to, get much better. He's got a long history of experience. If being around and associated with Moxley for this amount of time hasn't done it, I don't think anything will. But fantastic in the ring. Love Claudio. He's just not the whole package we all want him to be. Following that, we get Chris Statlander versus Viva Vaughn, who I am assuming has a Las Vegas background because she was starting to get some chants throughout this match. We get a fantastic rolling heel kick from Viva Vaughn. It looked, coming out of the corner, it looked really, really good on Chris Statlander, and Stat sold it very well, but it looked, she didn't get a lot of air on it. It was kind of a low rolling kick, but it looked very effective, and I liked it. Viva then lifted up Stat for an electric chair drop, but when Stat started countering it with fist to the forehead, this caused Viva to lose her footing a little bit, and they had to pivot down into sort of an O'Connor roll situation because it looked very dangerous. It could have ended up with one or both of these women landing on their necks. So another botched spot there. I'm going to put that one on Viva Vaughn because it was up to her to be able to support Statlander's weight, and it seemed like she couldn't do that once Stat started throwing fists. So I'm going to put that one on Viva Vaughn, but I'm glad that it ended safely and nobody got hurt. That allowed us to get towards the finish here, which was Chris Statlander going over with what they call the Wednesday Night Fever. I think they alternated based on whatever day of the week it is, if I remember right. I just have started calling it the Saturday Night Fever. Easier. I don't have to worry about what show it's on, what they're changing the name of the move to be. Not something that happens very often, so I think my brain is just used to that pattern. Following the match, we get Mick Foley coming out to interview Statlander, his fellow Long Islander, and it is announced that next week on Dynamite we are doing Statlander, Hikaru Shida, Persephone, and Maya World for Maya World's TBS title. Statlander says after the announcement that Maya World deserves the title, to absolutely no reaction whatsoever, to the point that Statlander has to almost do like a polite clap and say the line again. Whew! The crowd's not buying it. I think Maya's gotten pushed too fast and the crowd is almost annoyed by it. And I'll quantify that by saying the Vegas crowd was not good all night. It was not hot. They were comparing that to, let's say, like the Detroit energy or Mexico's energy. It wasn't even close. Vegas sat on their hands most of the night. But Maya World got no reaction here. And I'll bring that up again a little bit later. Stat also says she is made for the TBS title and that she's going to make sure Shida and Persephone pay for all the sneak attacks and belt shots. And her direct quote was something like, "I'm going to make them bend over backwards and shove their heads up their own asses." Statlander is still not a great promo herself, but Statlander, I like that she's going to be back focusing in the TBS title division. I think that works for her, especially now that Mercedes is back, now that Willow's been elevated to that division. I don't know that there's room for Stat there right now, so I like the refocus there. And now we're going to get the four-way match for that championship. I'm not sure why we're doing that next week versus at All In. Clearly, they must have something else planned for the TBS title for the show. But I do think it's going to be interesting to see how next week plays out. I'm not totally convinced that Maya World walks away with that championship, and I'll get into why a little bit as we talk through this next matchup, which is the tag team match between Maya World and Thunder Rosa taking on Persephone and Hikaru Shida. So 3 out of the 4 participants in that match next week, plus Thunder Rosa, who was involved in the TBS championship match last week between Persephone and Maya World. Thunder Rosa as Maya is making her entrance, Thunder Rosa had come out first. Thunder Rosa came out first because she came out to ward off a potential attack between Persephone and Shida on Statlander. So Rosa had come out first. Maya comes out last, as is the champion. She probably should. But Thunder Rosa comes back into frame, coming back up into the entrance ramp just to raise Maya World's hand, because honestly, Maya World didn't get any reaction or a pop coming out. That's not good either for your newly minted on the Ascent, apparently TBS champion. It doesn't seem like this Maya World experiment is going the way that AEW and a lot of the AEW diehards want it to. I haven't seen it, so I'm biased, but a lot of other people have been very heavy on the Maya train, the Maya monorail. It hasn't caught me yet, and I think the reactions are a little bit telling, as are the vehicles that AEW is using to show that they want to associate more popular characters like Stat, like Thunder Rosa, with Maya to try to put her over a bit more. It feels a bit ham-handed. It feels a little bit, if we're being honest, like when Roman Reigns in WWE was first pushed to the moon and they had to try to have The Rock come out to stave off boos, and even that didn't work. I don't think we're going to reach that territory with Maya World, because people still do like her. In this match, she did eventually get a few Maya, let's go Maya chants. So it's not a complete abject failure yet, but we're not trending in a great direction here. We got Thunder Rosa playing the face in peril most of this tag match, and outside of one botch later on, she looked pretty crisp, looked very fluid in this match. After Maya, as I mentioned, after Maya got the hot tag, we finally got a couple Maya chants smattered throughout the arena. We got a very impressive fall-away slam from Maya World on both Persephone and Shida, where Maya was able to hook the legs of one heel while throwing the other one back in her little fall-away slam pin type maneuver. Looked very, very impressive. I liked that, wrinkle that she threw in there a lot, and shows Maya has a good bit of body control. Thunder Rosa, as I mentioned, did almost overshoot a crossbody coming off the top onto Shida. She really almost missed catching her with most of her body weight and only ended up catching her with her lower part of her thighs. So that was more of a glancing blow than a full crossbody. Maya also hit a great stunner coming out of a roll through on Hikaru Shida that looked really good. Again, speaks to the good body control that Maya has. But conversely, at the finish of this match, that the baby faces won with Maya's pin finish on Shida. I always look back when they do these kind of Northern Lights type of bridge moves, because to me that's usually the best way, that shows me how flexible an athlete is, how well they can control body weight in that move, and how well they work on their bridging. And usually this is done very, very well. Usually wrestlers, male or female, don't do bridging moves unless they can bridge very well. Maya's bridge looked a little bit lacking. Her heels didn't get super far off the ground. She wasn't up on her toes. Give her some time with Taz. Taz will be able to show her how to bridge effectively. Pac also does this really well. Give her some sessions with one or two of those guys. They'll be able to show her how to bridge super effectively and up Maya's world's game more. If they're going to make her a bit more of a prominent player here, she's got to be able to do that if that's going to be her finish. Following that match, we get a promo backstage with Darby Allin. He says he has no regrets following his title run, nor should he. Our Darby Allin's title run was freaking awesome, and to me sets the benchmark for what any short world championship reign by a babyface should be. Guy has really, really set the bar quite high in what he did. We'll probably at some point do a retrospective on Darby's championship run in the next few weeks, but for right now, short version is fantastic. He compares that with Kevin Knight's current TNT title run, and speaks fondly of it. And he says that it compares very well to what Darby did. And it's also telling that we got that brought up because Darby had the most amount of title defenses combined with his 2 TNT championship reigns. But now Kevin Knight has tied that with his win over Jericho tonight. So the idea is that the longest championship reign would be on the line if Kevin Knight puts that championship up for grabs against Darby Allin in Darby's proposed Falls Count Anywhere match at All In. Darby said, he's waiting. He's waiting for Kevin Knight's answer. Following that, we get Renee Paquette interviewing Kyle Fletcher and the Don Callis family. Fletcher notes how he's defended his title 3 times in 3 different countries now. So really leaning into the international aspect of that. I love that. That is something AEW needs to do. They need to give these titles some more unique identity, the way WCW did with their Cruiserweight Championship, the way they did with the Television Championship. That was always a strength of WCW's mid-card, and I think we could all agree WCW's mid-card and Cruiserweight section or divisions, along with the NWO in its early incarnations, carried that company for a long time. So if AEW is able to do the same kind of thing, carving out unique identities for their mid-card championships, it would go a world of good to helping make those seem a bit more important and differentiated than they currently are. So Fletcher, again, brought up the international aspect of his international championship. He's looking to All In to make it a 4th country. We find out that Don Callis has worked a little bit on his behalf, and we are locked in now to exactly what we have been hoping for and expecting leading into All In. Yes, we are getting Kyle Fletcher defending that international championship against Konosuke Takeshita, who is out participating in the G1 right now with New Japan Pro Wrestling, and Kazuchika Okada. Yep, we are getting the international title 3-way we all hoped we were going to get. That's fantastic. I love it. Obviously, Fletcher was not happy. He walked off very upset, despite Okada trying to say the important thing was the beltway stays in the family. That could mean any number of things. It sounds like we're getting closer and closer to a Kyle Fletcher face turn here, guys. And honestly, he is a bit superfluous in the Don Callis family with Okada, with Kevin Knight as the TNT champion, with the ascent of Mark Davis. I don't think we really need Kyle Fletcher locked into that stable anymore. Even if you don't want to turn him face, if you want to branch him out as a heel doing his own thing, I think we're getting real close to that time. Whether it happens at All In, whether it happens at All Out, whether it happens at some of the TV in between, I think a Kyle Fletcher split from the Don Callis family is inevitable, and sooner than later. So following that, we end up at our main event of the evening, which is the final Continental Challenge Cup match for the night. Jungle Jack Perry taking on the Continental Champion, Jon Moxley, the leader of the Death Riders. Perry, early on in this match, goes for a sliced bread on the outside, and Mox counters and tosses Jack right through a table at the announce area. Jack's busted open pretty quickly in that span, and we got a lot of Moxley with a a very ground and pound submission game in this match. He didn't let this be a very athletic contest. Obviously, in kayfabe, this leans more towards Moxley's strengths as a character while keeping away from Jack Perry's strengths. So narratively, this makes a lot of sense. Moxley really looked like a UFC fighter anymore in his approach, in his demeanor, in his offense. It is very, very octagon heavy, and I think that's really working for him, especially given the fact that the Death Riders are very much a UFC shoot fight style stable. So it makes sense that Moxley has adopted that much more in his character. Perry tries a comebacker lariat after some of this ground and pound offense, and Moxley doesn't even move. I mean, like, not an inch. It was a good spot. Perry keeps throwing up middle fingers late into the match at Moxley after Moxley's doing forearm strikes. I really wish we'd stop doing this. It seems very, very prevalent amongst AEW. Not even baby faces or heels. Both of them seem to do this with some regularity. I really wish they wouldn't. It's just not everybody can do it. It loses all its meaning if everybody does the same gestures. Not everybody can be Stone Cold Steve Austin, guys. We're not all edgelords here. It's granted, it's not as bad as when the Inner Circle was doing it every single week. It was really, really painful to watch then. It's not as bad now, but I still could see more doing away with unnecessary middle fingers in situations where guys don't have a blood feud against each other and there's not a lot of emotion involved. This was just a straight up singles tournament match. There's no call for that. I'm not pearl clutching, by the way. It just doesn't fit the emotional gravitas of the situation. Both men do the fighting spirit spot where they no sell offense and scream a good bit. Again, not a critique. It's a fighting spirit spot. But Jack eventually hits a super kick as Moxley comes back out of that spot and follows it up with a roll up. And after a failed pile driver attempt for a near fall, Perry transitions immediately into the snare trap, but Moxley several times uses the taped up fingers or other means to break the grip of Perry, and that allows him to come out of that submission hold with arm control, leading that into a bulldog choke, and finally shifting into a sleeper that puts Perry to sleep and gives Moxley the win. So Jon Moxley eliminates Jack Perry from the Continental Cup. Moxley moves on to round 2. Finally, at the end of the show, we get the closing shot with a handshake between both men. Moxley's still very much a tweener here, really towing both sides of the line, facing mostly baby faces and guys like Ospreay and guys like Jack Perry, but showing respect to both of them and not doing a lot of underhanded heel tactics directly. So Moxley continues to be a true tweener. That wraps us up for the show. We've got a couple more matches that on Collision in the Continental Cup. 3 of them that I previewed. It's going to be Kyle O'Reilly versus Roderick Strong. It's going to be Nigel McGuinness versus Katsuyori Shibata of the Ops. And it's going to be Don Callis boys going at it as Hechicera will take on Brian Cage. So, it's going to be, that'll be the end of our first round. The Continental Cup will have its first round completed after that one. We'll be down to our final 8 participants. We'll get 4 matches after that that'll lead us into the Scotland semifinals and finally into the finals at All In. So what did you guys think of the show? I was very surprised by the Swerve comeback. I don't know that it made sense here to do. I don't know that it makes sense to involve him in the trios beef right now. He feels very out of place. I like that they played up the history that everybody hates Swerve. So that's something of interest, and I'm going to see where that goes going forward. But I do think it was an odd choice to bring him back here versus at All In. I also, wasn't a super clean show. There were some really significant botches here that looked bad and really could have led to injury. So people didn't seem like they were really on their game for the most part for the show. I say that, with some obvious exceptions, especially the Gauntlet qualifier match was fantastic. That was my match of the night, personally. Although Moxley and Jack Perry was very good too. So, what did you guys think of the show? Did you like it? What did you feel about the Swerve return? What did you think about the 4-way next week for the TBS Championship? Let me know in the comments what your thoughts are. Very curious to see what everybody's take on this is. Thank you so much for watching. I will be back following the first round completion of the Continental Cup to sort of recap the first round and preview what round 2 could look like, especially as we get the blind draw matches announced. So, thanks for watching. I am Christian for Duality of Wrestling. We will see you on the next one, guys. Take care.